There is a kind of healing that doesn't come through words, not through talking, not through explaining, not even through understanding. It comes through silence. When you stop filling space with sound, the noise within you finally has room to breathe. Pain surfaces, thoughts rise, and you begin to feel what you've been avoiding. This is where true healing begins, not in distraction, but in awareness. Silence doesn't fix you. It reveals you. It strips away everything that isn't real until what remains is honest and whole. And when the world is too loud, silence becomes not a luxury, but a necessity, a place to return, a place to rest, a place to remember who you are. We often think healing is about doing more processing, more explaining, more trying to fix ourselves. But silence invites us to do the opposite. It asks us to sit, to listen, to stop running from what hurts. In silence, the mind stops searching for answers long enough to feel the truth that was always there. The truth that you are tired, that you are carrying too much, that you don't need to hold it all anymore. Silent therapy isn't about escaping the world. It's about coming back to yourself, without judgment, without noise, without masks. Because healing doesn't require noise. It requires space. Silence has a rhythm. And when you sit with it long enough, it begins to speak. Not in words, but in clarity, in presence, in awareness. You begin to notice things you've missed. The way your shoulders are always tense. The thoughts that loop in the background. The sadness that's been sitting quietly, waiting to be acknowledged. Most of us run from silence because it feels empty. But silence isn't empty. It's honest. It doesn't distract. It doesn't entertain. It simply invites you to feel. Fully, softly, completely. And in a world obsessed with fixing, sometimes, simply feeling is what finally heals. If this resonates with you so far, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you won't miss what comes next. The mind is addicted to stimulation, noise, movement, distraction, anything to avoid stillness. But stillness is where the real work happens. In silence, the emotions you've buried begin to rise, not to punish you, but to be released. Grief, anger, loneliness, fear. They surface, not to drown you, but to be seen, maybe for the first time. And when you don't run from them, you realize they were never permanent. They were just waiting for permission to leave. That's what silence gives you. Permission to feel, and permission to let go. Healing doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from sitting beside it, breathing through it, and letting it move. You don't have to explain your pain to heal it. You don't need perfect words, long conversations, or anyone else's permission. Silence doesn't ask for explanations. It simply holds space. Space for your heart to soften. Space for your nervous system to settle. Space for your thoughts to slow until they lose their urgency. In that space, you begin to hear what's underneath the noise, the quiet voice of your intuition, the knowing that was always there, but drowned out by overthinking. Silent therapy reminds you, you don't have to figure everything out. You just have to stop interrupting your own clarity. Let silence speak. It already knows what you need. The world teaches you to talk your way through everything, to explain, to defend, to prove. But sometimes, the more you speak, the further you drift from what's real. Silence doesn't demand performance. It doesn't ask you to be wise or impressive. It simply invites you to be as you are. No filters, no arguments, just presence. In that presence, something profound happens. The parts of you that were ignored begin to breathe. The wounds you covered up begin to soften, and the self you buried under noise begins to return. Because silence doesn't just quiet the world, it brings you back to yourself. Most people confuse silence with loneliness, but silence isn't loneliness. It's intimacy, the deepest kind. It's the space where you finally meet yourself without interruption, without distraction, without the expectations of others shaping your every move. In silence, you begin to hear your own voice again, the one that was buried beneath the noise of comparison, pressure, and performance. You realize that peace isn't something to find out there. It's something to return to, in here. And the more time you spend in silence, the more comfortable you become with your own company. And from that comfort, strength is born. Because when you're no longer afraid of being alone with yourself, you become truly free. We spend so much of life reacting to people, to pressure, to pain. But silence breaks the cycle. It gives you time to pause, time to choose a different path. In silence, there is no one to impress, no one to convince. Just you, your breath, and the truth you've been avoiding. And when you sit with that truth long enough, you stop needing to react to everything. You begin to respond, slowly, thoughtfully, from a place of calm. This is the power of silent therapy. It shifts you from reaction to reflection, from noise to nuance, from overwhelm to presence. And with presence, healing begins, not with control, but with surrender. Some pain doesn't need to be analyzed. It just needs to be felt, fully, and without interruption. Silent therapy teaches you this. It invites you to sit beside your pain, not fix it. To breathe with it, not fight it. To offer it presence, not resistance. Because when you stop trying to label what you feel, you finally allow it to pass through you. And that's the secret. Most pain doesn't last forever. It only lingers because we resist it, rehearse it, retell it. But in silence, there is no retelling, only release. And sometimes, what you need isn't someone to solve it. You just need space to let it soften. Silence reveals what noise tries to hide. It brings forward the subtle, the ache beneath the smile, the tension behind the laughter, the exhaustion no one else can see. When you allow yourself to sit in that quiet, you're not collapsing, you're healing. You're choosing to feel what's real instead of performing what's expected. You're creating space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you start to remember. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to be strong all the time. Sometimes, strength looks like sitting in silence with your hand on your heart and your breath slow and steady, and saying to yourself quietly, I'm still here, and I'm still healing. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Tension in your shoulders, that tightness in your chest, the fatigue that sleep can't fix. These are signs, not flaws, not failures, just gentle signals saying, slow down, listen. Silent therapy doesn't just quiet the mind, it gives the body permission to rest. When you stop pouring your energy into constant thinking, your body starts to release what it's been holding for far too long. And sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is close your eyes, breathe deeply, and say nothing at all. Let your body feel the safety and stillness. Let silence do what words can't. There's a wisdom that only appears when things go quiet. Not the kind you read in books, not the kind someone else can give you. It's the kind that comes from stillness, from sitting with the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it asks you to let go of who you thought you were. In silence, your mind stops chasing, your breath slows, and for a moment, you feel what it means to simply be. No performance, no fixing, no pretending, just presence. And in that presence, a subtle voice begins to speak. A knowing that says, you are not broken. You are becoming. You just needed quiet to remember. We think healing has to be dramatic, a breakthrough, a cry, a sudden transformation. But often, it's quieter than that. It's a soft exhale, a loosening of the grip, a moment where you stop fighting what is. Silent therapy is made of those moments, tiny, invisible shifts that no one else can see. But you feel them, the lightness in your chest, the way you respond instead of react, the ease in your breath. This is healing, not flashy, not loud, but real. And over time, these quiet moments build something unshakable, a trust in yourself, a calm that doesn't need to be explained, just lived. There's a reason silence feels so unfamiliar. We live in a world that worships noise, notifications, opinions, expectations. And in all of that volume, we begin to forget how to listen. But silence teaches listening, not just to others, but to yourself. You begin to hear your fatigue. You notice your inner dialogue. You recognize how long you've been ignoring your own needs. And that's when something shifts. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. You stop explaining yourself to be understood. You stop apologizing for needing space. Silent therapy gives you permission to rest, to reclaim, to return to yourself without guilt. Because healing doesn't ask for noise, it asks for honesty. Healing in silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the one thing that matters most, being fully present. Most people don't know how to sit with themselves. They fidget. They reach for their phone. They turn on something, anything, to avoid the stillness. But the stillness is where your healing lives. When you sit in silence, uncomfortable things come up. Regret, fear, loneliness. Not to hurt you, but to be heard. You don't have to solve everything that arises. You just have to stay, to breathe, to witness. And over time, those emotions begin to shift. Not because you forced them, but because you finally gave them the space they were asking for all along. Stay with yourself. That's what healing truly means. Sometimes we confuse healing with fixing. We think we need to find the root, name the wound, change the pattern immediately. But silence offers a different way. It doesn't demand clarity right now. It doesn't push for quick answers. It simply asks, can you sit with yourself without needing to change anything? That's a rare kind of peace, and it's powerful. In silence, you begin to see that not every emotion needs a response. Not every thought deserves analysis. Not every feeling is a problem to solve. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is to allow everything to be as it is, just for a while. Let the noise settle. Let the pressure soften. Let yourself rest in not knowing. The beauty of silent healing is that no one else has to understand it. It's not something you post. It's not something you explain. It's something you live, quietly, deeply, consistently. You begin to notice that you're no longer reactive. You take things less personally. You speak slower, with intention. You listen more. You breathe deeper. And without realizing it, you become someone new. Not because you changed everything, but because you stopped resisting what is. This is the power of quiet transformation. It doesn't need recognition. It just needs your presence. Let silence rewire you, not for who others want you to be, but for who you already are beneath the noise. Silence has no timeline. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't care how long it takes for you to come home to yourself. That's why it's healing, because it creates space outside of pressure, a space where you're not behind, you're not broken, you're not failing, you're just becoming. Every time you sit in silence, you strengthen the part of you that doesn't need noise to feel alive. You train the part of you that can stay calm, even when everything around you isn't. And that kind of calm, the calm that lives inside, not outside, can't be shaken by circumstance. That's the gift of silence. It gives you back to you. You weren't born into noise. You came into this world in silence, eyes wide, breath slow, completely present. And maybe healing isn't about adding more. Maybe it's about returning to that original calm, to that quiet knowing, to that version of you that was whole before the world taught you to perform. Silent therapy isn't a cure. It's a remembering of who you are when everything else falls away, when the labels fade, when the roles dissolve, when it's just you, and breath, and awareness. And that version of you, the quiet one, the grounded one, has never left. It's been waiting, in the silence, the whole time. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like breath, like stillness, like nothing at all. And maybe that's the deepest kind of healing, the one that doesn't shout its progress, but simply helps you feel whole again, without needing to explain why. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people never learn. You don't always need to speak to be heard. You don't always need to fight to heal. Sometimes you just need space. And silence gives you that space. When was the last time you allowed yourself to sit in silence, without guilt? Leave a comment. Your answer might help someone else find the quiet they've been looking for.